If you want to go beyond the rink and into the dressing room, there's only one place to be, the HockeyVerse, with your hosts Michael Trakos and Johnny Legend.
Well, they did it. They actually did it. The Leafs have won a playoff round. I still don't believe it. Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, Morgan Rielly, John Tavares, they have finally slayed their dragon. They've changed the narrative. They are chokers no more. Still feels kind of weird to say it. And the last time the Leafs won a round was way, way back in 2004. Now, Twitter wasn't even a thing back then. We're talking so long ago, I had hair. Yeah, it's been a while, a long while. And while the end goal remains the same, it's still Stanley Cup or bust, people. Don't forget it. The fact that the Leafs finally got over this hump means that they can all relax, we can all take a deep breath. The pressure is off. And that's important, not just for the players, but the coaching staff and management as well, because you knew what was at stake here. Had the Leafs lost Game 6 and gone to a Game 7, and let's face it, if it went to a Game 7, it was basically over. Jobs were on the line. Heads were going to roll. Legacies were on the line too. They probably still are. We'll dive into that and much, much more on today's episode of the HockeyVerse.
You just found the world's latest and greatest hockey, sports, and entertainment podcast. This is the HockeyVerse. On today's episode, we recap the series-clinching win by the Leafs over the Lightning and look ahead to what we can expect for the second round. We're also joined by Sportsnet hockey columnist Luke Fox, who was in Tampa Bay for everything that went down in Game 6 and whether the Leafs can go all the way. By the way, check out our show notes for timestamps and if you want to fast forward to your favorite part. Also, if you want to be on a future episode, email your question to heyhockeyverse@gmail.com. Now we can unpucker our buttholes. Let's go.
Still feels kind of weird to think the Leafs are in the second round there, Johnny.
Oh my God, it's been a long time.
You know, ever since I was covering this team professionally, they had never won a Stanley Cup playoff round.
Wow, that's crazy.
And that's including a team that was basically gift-wrapped a path to the final that year when they had that all-Canadian division. Mm-hmm. They blew a 3-1 lead to Montreal. Before that, they couldn't get past the Bruins. They couldn't get past the Columbus Blue Jackets that one year, even though that wasn't technically a first round. It was a play-in round. It just seems like, like pinch me now. Are the Leafs actually, are they in a second round?
Well, they're in a second round. You know what we can do now, Mike? We can crack a beer.
There you go.
And we can celebrate, finally.
Well,
something to celebrate.
You can celebrate. I'm still of the belief that until this team wins a Stanley Cup, they haven't accomplished diddly squat.
No, but you got to take it one step at a time.
You got to take it one step at a time, but the goalposts haven't changed in my mind. This team, if they go out in the second round, it's still going to be a disappointment in my eyes because on paper, it's built for the Stanley Cup. It's built to win a Stanley Cup, and they should have went to the second round with the team they had and where they finished this year. And now they should make it to the conference final. And they're still the favorites in my mind. Not
just that, the way they played, the way they punished Tampa Bay. I mean, look, Luke Shen put their Tampa Bay's big draft or trade deadline trade to rest with a couple of punches to the head. Totally eliminated them from the playoffs.
Who's that?
Tanner Jeannot.
Oh, he destroyed him.
He destroyed him, and you never heard from him again, really.
Well, he was a healthy scratch, and I think Tampa Bay fans are going to look back on that trade going, yeah, that was a big, big misstep by management in getting Jeannot because you gave up a lot of picks. And this isn't a Tampa Bay show, so we're not going to be diving into where do the Lightning go from here. But after back-to-back Cup finals and the amount of first-round picks that this team has given up over the years, it's not crazy to think that Tampa's reign is probably over. I can't see them winning another championship with the kind of roster decisions that they've had to make over the years, and that was a weaker blue line that we've ever seen from Tampa. They didn't have the scoring depth that we have seen in years, and good on the Leafs for taking advantage of that. But I look at the Leafs right now. We're going to have Luke Fox on later in the show to kind of dive into what was different from this year's edition of the Leafs versus past editions. But it's not just the core. It's Luke Schenn. It's Ryan O'Reilly. It's Ilya Samsonov. Man, has this guy made a believer out of fans.
Oh, my God, yeah.
What do you think the narrative is? How do you think the narrative has changed around John Tavares? Because I look at Tavares and he signs that contract where I don't think he's ever going to be a justified 11 million guy in a lot of guys' minds or a lot of fans' minds. But Tavares isn't Doug Gilmour. He's not Wendell Clark. He's not Matt Sundin. He doesn't lead that way. But to get the clinching overtime goal for a guy that's kind of, he's been criticized a lot in Toronto over the years for signing that deal that's really hamstrung Kyle Dubas in what he's been able to accomplish. Did he answer a lot of questions for you?
I didn't have those questions. We talked about that a bunch. When you got Johnny T, you know what you're getting. You're getting exactly what you've got.
Yeah.
Right? And he's done it every year since he's been here. Was it worth the money? I guess that's all relative, right? If they win a Stanley Cup, then it was worth that and double. Right? But for him to score the overtime winner that slayed that dragon and got the monkey off their back, he's going to be locked in Leaf fan lore forever now.
Yeah, which goal do you think gets shown more? John Tavares on that kind of turnaround wrister where it kind of sneaks through Vasilevsky and it's the winner? Or that goal by Austin Matthews where from start to finish, he just dominated a shift and then rockets a one-timer.
Oh, my God. And not only did he dominate that shift, he directed traffic, and he told him exactly where to pass the puck so that he could get that one-timer. That was amazing.
Yeah, that had me thinking like Doug Gilmour on the wraparound, the one on Cujo against St. Louis where he fakes left, fakes right, goes back left again. That's one of those goals where I think like 10 years from now, we're still going to be watching highlights and they're going to be showing, like I said, Matthews directing traffic, was it Brody that passed him the puck?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
He said, put it here on the tee and I'm just going to rocket it over Vasilevsky's head.
Yep. And you know what? That was a totally different Austin Matthews last night. That was an Austin Matthews that we've been asking for since the beginning of the playoffs. The one to take charge, and I think it had to do a lot with them being in Tampa Bay and the fact that Keefe wasn't trying to match up lines. He was just putting the studs out there over and over again, right? That's what you need to do. You want to win the game, the best player's got to be on the ice. You can't have Austin Matthews playing 40 seconds in the first 9 minutes of the game.
Austin Matthews in this series, 5 goals, 9 points in 6 games.
Yeah, and pretty big goals.
Almost a goal a game.
And he didn't start scoring until the third game, right?
Yep. I think
he's got what? He had 6 goals in 4 games. Those 6 goals in the last 4 games of the series.
Yeah, and big goals.
Yeah.
Like even in game 5 where they lose, he has the goal that kind of brings him into it.
Yeah, with 4 minutes left, 5 minutes left.
Yeah, so he's answered a lot of questions. And you got to remember, he wasn't playing with Mitch most of this series. Like Sheldon had so much confidence in him that I think he started this game or game 6 with Matthew Knies on one wing, and was it William Nylander? I think was on the other wing.
Vanishing Willie.
Yeah, William Nylander did not have a good series, but the good news for him is he's got another 7-game series to kind of make up for it. Yep. And I think that's what the Leafs were always missing over the years. It was like a Nylander didn't have his moment because they never got into a round 2, or that unsung hero on the third line didn't have those big clutch goals that would typically happen in a long playoff run. This team got contributions from up and down the lineup, but at the end of the day, it was the stars who were really carrying the load. Guys like Morgan Rielly, guys like Matthews and John Tavares. I think Ryan O'Reilly had a huge, huge series. You can really go up and down the lineup. Even Michael Bunting, who took a lot of flack for getting suspended and then getting dressed for Game 5. He came like shot out of a cannon for Game 6.
He was fired up.
And then soon found his way back on the top line. Even Matthew Knies, I think, I'm seeing now Matthew Knies jerseys now in the crowd.
Matthew Knies played an amazing series, and he got better every single game. He was on the ice for every single overtime winner.
He was great at cycling the puck.
Yeah.
It gives him that big body.
And there was a couple of times where you would think he was going to go outside when he was coming in, and he'd cut back inside and throw a beautiful pass, right? That's something that a young kid normally doesn't do.
I could see that guy also getting better also with every game just because of the confidence.
Mm-hmm.
You got to remember, he was playing in the NCAA, a couple weeks ago?
Mm-hmm. And not just that. Who starts their career in the playoffs?
Yeah. Well,
Under insane pressure.
You know who started their career in the playoffs?
Who's that?
Cale Makar.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I think Cale Makar didn't play at all in 2018-19, then came in for 10 games in the playoffs, gets a goal, 6 points. The next season, it was only a 57-game season. He had 50 points.
Superstar.
I think he wins the Calder.
I think that that trial by fire, that makes you tougher, right?
Matthew Knies now on Calder Trophy Watch, Rookie of the Year.
For next year, yeah, 100%.
I think so. He looks like a guy that the Leafs are not going to let go.
No.
Like,
no,
you might lose Bunting in the summer. You might lose a Nick Robertson or something like that, but you're not losing a Matthew Knies.
No. And how much we probably talked about it so much that people were getting sick of hearing Matthew Knies before he even showed up in the podcast. But
yeah,
look at, right?
You need those guys. Like, people forget, like when Chicago won the Stanley Cup the first time, Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews were on entry-level contracts.
Yeah, they were just kids.
Yeah. You need those guys who are drastically underpaid to, like, balance out your roster sheet.
Yeah, the overachievers.
Yeah. So having Knies back there is huge because if he keeps on this trajectory, he's going to get paid. He's going to get $6 million plus probably on his next contract.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm not overstepping when I say this guy's legit. Like, it's not just a flash in the pan.
Yeah, we've been talking about it for months, how legit he is going to be.
Know who else is legit?
Who's that?
Ilya Samsonov.
Oh, my God.
You know how much flack I got for talking about how Kyle Dubas got the job done, and everyone would say, yeah, but he didn't get a goalie. What goalie did he get? And I kept saying, well, he got Samsonov and Murray, who at the time were better than Cam Talbot or Marc-Andre Fleury or Darcy Kemper. And people were like, well, he didn't get a legit number one goalie. This guy's a legit number one goalie now.
He's 100%.
He outplayed Vasilevsky. And, when the pressure is on, and let's face it, like, Vasilevsky finally showed up in the last two games and was the Vasilevsky that really takes over a series, and you're going, oh, that's the guy that led Tampa to championship after championship. Samsonov outplayed him.
Yep. And what I liked is, even though he's maybe he doesn't have the same stigma as like a Vasilevsky, when he let in a bad goal, he didn't let it get to him at all.
No. And like, we're going to talk to Luke Fox about Samsonov and the difficulties in being a Russian goalie and going up against, I don't know if Vasilevsky is Samsonov's hero, but if you're a Russian goalie and you're going up against a Vasilevsky, that's not unlike a couple years ago being a Canadian goalie and going up against Carey Price. Like, there's no doubt that if Russia is ever allowed back into like a World Cup or an Olympics and they're putting their best team forward, Vasilevsky is already penciled in. Or I think Samsonov, I don't know if he's going to be a number two because you still got Shesterkin there, but
he's in the discussion.
He is definitely in the discussion now. And, if he wins a cup, again, I don't want to go too far ahead, but this guy is only 26 years old. That's right when goaltenders come into their own.
And he looks like he's 15.
900 save percentage against a Tampa Bay team that can definitely score. And we said it earlier, kind of like the Grant Fuhr model from the 80s. He let in 4 goals, but he didn't let in that fifth that was going to be the heartbreaker. And so many times, whether it was Jack Campbell, Freddie Anderson, go back to James Reimer, they were good up until a point, and then all of a sudden, like a house of cards, it all kind of just fell apart. Samsonov played his best when they needed him to be the best.
And one thing with the Freddie Anderson and the Jack Campbell and the James Reimer, it was always that first goal.
Yeah.
They always let in the first goal of the game. and it just blew the wind right out of their sails. Like, how many saves did Samsonov make last night?
So many key ones, and is always around. Like, this guy doesn't give up on a puck.
No.
Love that about him.
Yeah.
Like, he just battles and battles.
I was watching him dive into the crowd in front of the net to grab the puck. It was great.
So many times where I was like, oh, Tampa's going to score here. They've got the puck right on the side of the net, and they're just going to shovel it in. And for whatever reason, this guy just kept it out. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how Washington gave up on a guy who was a first-round pick, 22nd overall, 6'3", 214 pounds. He's everything you need in a goalie.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave him up for basically nothing. Toronto picks him up, and I think they've got their starting goaltender for the next 5 years now.
And he got pulled in game one. Didn't phase him one bit.
No, that game one was just, you look back on it, and what an anomaly
it was
that
everybody,
was.
yeah. Yeah, if you look at the other 5 games. Now, I was prepared to come here the other day and talk about, Hellebuck's going to be kind of available because Winnipeg's falling apart.
Did you hear his comments?
What's that?
He said, I now realize I'm at the age where I want to win a Stanley Cup, and I don't know if it's going to happen here. Mm-hmm. Again, not word for word, but that was the gist of it.
I think everybody's on their way out of there, and I was prepared to come in here and talk about what do you think that would look like if the Leafs had Hellebuck, but now I'm not sure they need him.
Well, you can't afford him, and if you get a Hellebuck, who goes out the door, right?
It would be a Willie. I was thinking a Willie.
Yeah,
Willie for Hellebuck, and then re-sign him, and then you got the money.
It would have to
be
that.
But I don't know if Samsonov's not the guy.
I think he's the guy.
I think Samsonov's the guy.
And I think you've got, Joseph Woll, who, we haven't seen a whole lot of, but again, comes with a pretty good pedigree.
And he's gigantic.
Yeah, so I think you've got a good 1A, 1B, or starter backup scenario. Now, Samsonov's going to get paid. He's in the final year of a contract that is $1.8 million. So, in terms of goaltending contracts, that is drastically underpaid.
And how much is the cap going up next year?
I think it's going up, and not more than $1 million.
Not enough.
Yeah, something like that. I don't have it right in front of me. So say Matt Murray's getting 4.6. Let's just say Samsonov is looking at a 5x5, similar to what Jack Campbell got last year, right? Leafs have to make that contract happen, right?
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
Who goes out the door? That's the thing. You got these. That's why you have to win now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying let's go over is it Willie? Is it a defenseman like Brody who's making $5 million? Forget about that conversation, but that's in the back of everyone's mind, is that as good as this team looks right now, next year you're not going to have an O'Reilly. You're not going to have Samsonov making $1.8 million. You don't have many opportunities to take advantage of this right now. It gets harder and harder every year, and that's why I commend Kyle Dubas for the job he was able to do, because this team on paper is deeper than it was last year or the year before, and that is hard to do.
By a large margin deeper.
So, this is the time, and that's why I see the celebrations, and I get it. Celebrate like you haven't won a round in how many years?
All these kids celebrating right now haven't seen them win a round.
But it's the Stanley Cup or bust.
Mm-hmm.
You got to believe that. If the Leafs don't win a Stanley Cup this year, there's no guarantee that because they won a round this year that they're going to win 2 rounds the next year, then 3 rounds, and then win a cup. It doesn't work that way.
But it's off their backs now that if they do get knocked out in the second round, they don't have to eat a giant bag of crap.
Fine, I get it.
Yeah.
Who cares? They got to win.
They got to win for us.
Not for us.
For the guys that are over 40 that watched it all happen.
For you, they got to win. No, I get it. Hey, trust me. We always used to joke, the Leafs win, it's good for everyone. It's good for the fans, and it's good for the media, because the fans are just eating it up, and they want to buy papers, or they're tuning in, or they're listening to the HockeyVerse podcast.
Yeah, they want to hear everybody's take.
It's great news all around. As fun as it is to carve up a team that constantly is just crap in the bed, you want to see this team go deep, and you want you want to be able to cover a winning team.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, like I said, I'm not seeing any holes in the Leafs lineup. I was seeing that hole, and the hole was in the back
The
end.
hole was the hall.
The hole was the hole, and the hole was theoretically the goaltending going into the series because we didn't know well, Matt Murray's injured still. We don't know if he's going to come back. I don't think he's going to see the net at all the way that Samsonov is playing. But where do you go? Where's the weak spot right now?
You think that Murray still has a chance to play in the playoffs?
He has a chance to play in the playoffs the same way that Joseph Wall had a chance to play in the playoffs. Garbage time.
I didn't even think he had that much of a chance.
Well, how many minutes has Vasilevsky's backup played in the last 3 years in the playoffs?
Vasilevsky, 0. We didn't even know who he was.
Yeah. He's Newmarket's own.
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
I don't even think he puts on his cup. He's like, I ain't going in.
No.
Because even if Vasilevsky gets pumped, even if Vasilevsky is pumped for 7 goals, he's not going to come out.
No, and I think Samsonov is built from the same cloth that way. So what do you think? We're going to find out on the night that we're recording this podcast. Florida and Boston play a pivotal Game 7.
Do you want to talk about who we picked?
Sure.
Before the playoffs started?
Go.
So we both picked the Leafs.
Who picked them in 6?
Oh, Mikey picked them in 6.
Yeah.
Good job. But Mike also picked here's the thing. We both picked Winnipeg. But if you listen to the podcast we both said Vegas was going to win. We both talked about how good Vegas was, and then we both picked Winnipeg.
Yeah, I didn't believe in Jack Eichel.
So here's one where you made a colossal mistake. You picked Colorado in a sweep, and then called me crazy when I picked Seattle in 7. How about that?
Listen, I'm wrong more than I am right.
So you got Boston in 5, and I took Florida in 7. So who would you rather play? Would you rather play Boston or Florida? Looking not from before the playoffs, but now. Who would you rather play? I mean, both of them are going to be beat the hell up.
No, I don't want to play Matthew Tkachuk.
No, that's what I was thinking too.
Matthew Tkachuk is going to single-handedly just like go through the lineup like John Wick. And he's going to have a body count that's going to stretch to like 23 players on the ice.
Oh yeah, his body count will be bigger than the Clintons.
Bang, bang, bang.
What do you
in Boston for sure.
Yeah.
And the way that Allmark is playing, what happened to Boston's goaltending?
7 goals.
Like Boston's goaltending, it was like Allmark and Swayman, the new William Jennings tandem. They cannot be beat, and that Boston team is just unstoppable. Now you're looking at it going, oh yeah, this is why Linus Allmark never made it in Buffalo. Like he's just, for the same reasons why Samsonov's been good and rising to the occasion, a guy like Allmark has not risen.
No. And you ever look at that Buffalo lineup from 2019?
Yeah, we were talking about that.
All-stars. Like the first 3 lines are all-stars.
Yeah, they had Eichel, Hall, Taylor Hall.
Tage Thompson.
Then they had like Sam Reinhart. I can't remember who else was on that team.
Oh, it was crazy.
But
so
yeah, sorry, just keep on this Boston thing.
Yeah.
Again, whether it's the Bruins, whether it's the Panthers, you got to think that Toronto is, objectively the favorite going into that matchup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now just in injuries alone.
Yeah, like we talked about, like in a joking way, that Matthew Tkachuk is like taking the skin off every player he's playing against, but it's real. Like that Boston team, they just got Bergeron back. Don't tell me he's 100%. And yeah, Tkachuk is just a mean son of a gun, man. Just
like his father, man. Maybe even meaner.
I remember getting a discussion with someone. Would you rather have Brady or would you rather
that
have
was
Matthew?
Me.
So you,
Yeah.
What did you say?
I took Brady because he was bigger and younger.
Yeah,
but I think if he was in the playoffs, he'd play the same way.
That's the one thing. If you're an Ottawa fan, is like you watch Matthew Tkachuk and you're going, oh, that could be Brady right there.
Yeah.
And don't tell me now who's won or lost that trade. Everyone was saying you gave up Mackenzie Weegar and Jonathan Huberdeau for Matthew Tkachuk.
Who was in the playoffs?
I told this guy I ran into the other day, I would trade Austin Matthews for Matthew Tkachuk.
Well, I was talking to somebody about that. You had the choice between two players, you had pay them whatever you want. You're starting a team. You're going to pick Matthew Tkachuk or Austin Matthews. Which one are you going to pick?
Taking Matthew Tkachuk.
I hear you. Me too.
The 100-point guy, and he's a mean son of a gun.
But
man.
after last night, Austin Matthews moved a little closer.
Oh, I'm not saying one is good, one is garbage.
No. But if you're building a team.
Yeah. You win with guys like Matthew Tkachuk. And I think the Leafs they don't have a Tkachuk in their roster, but they've got elements now where
no team has a Tkachuk in their roster except for Ottawa. Really?
Yeah. Boston has Marchand, who used to be that guy.
So you took Edmonton in 6, correct again?
Yeah, they got the job done too. Is that a dream final now?
It's still, back again? It's still alive.
Yeah,
it's still alive.
Honestly, if it's an Oilers Leafs final, I don't care who wins. I just give me 7 games, and yeah, I'll be good.
We both picked Dallas, but we didn't pick any games because we didn't care.
Yeah.
So we're right there. You took the Islanders in 7, and I took Carolina in 7.
Yeah, Carolina. Even without Svechnikov, they're getting the job done.
Mm-hmm. And then what else? I think that's everybody, right?
The Rangers and the Devils.
Oh, the Rangers. Yeah, we both took the Rangers. Well, you took the Rangers to go to the final. You took Rangers in 5.
Yeah.
I took Rangers in 6.
It's still on. They play on Monday, a game 7, and that series is I haven't seen a lot of it because they're playing the same time as the Leafs are playing. So it's always which one am I going to watch? But Jack Hughes is making his mark on that series, that's for sure.
I love the Jack Hughes interviews after the game when they lose, eh? They go, hey, what do you think of the game? He goes, we lost, right? He goes, yeah, so write it. He walks away.
The best was, so I got to know the Hughes family real well because his dad was the player development coach for the Leafs way back when. One time William Nylander was living with Jim Hughes and his 2 boys. So Jack Hughes and Quinn Hughes and also Luke Hughes. Can you imagine that? You got William Nylander as basically the older brother. Great game of 2v2. And I got to know Jack because he was he's been basically Connor McDavid playing in the Toronto hockey system forever. Applied for exceptional status to enter the OHL a year early, didn't get it. Ended up going to the National Development Team program. But the one thing, and his mom was a decorated hockey player as well. I believe she's in the U.S. Women's Hockey Hall of Fame or something like that. Ellen Hughes. And the one thing I interviewed Jack, and then I interviewed the mom, and talked to the mom first, and then she goes to Jack, don't be one of those boring hockey players that just gives cliche quotes. Be interesting, all right? Be fun. And I was like, who tells their kid to just be a fun interview?
And he's been doing it, yeah.
He's been great.
Yeah, I love watching it.
I remember, so the first interview I had with him, and he was coming back from an injury. I thought was an injury. And he goes, I go, so you missed some games. What was it, like a knee thing or whatever? He goes, no, I had a stomach flu. In my first game back, I scored a goal. Then I came to the bench, and I barfed on the bench. And then I went out again, and I scored another goal. Then I came back, and I barfed again. And I was just like, you're the best, man. I hope everything works out for you because I hope you actually play for Toronto so I can interview you every day.
That's what hockey needs, though. Hockey's been notoriously kind of straight-laced and cliche and no personality, right? They want to get some personality in the game.
We're starting to see it more and more now, right?
Yeah.
Like Matthews and the style, he's taking more chances with fashion and things like that. And we saw it with PK Subban, was not afraid to speak his mind, and Roberto Luongo. But yeah, it's not to the level that he's still kind of boring cliche guys, right? It was good to see the Leafs kind of celebrate big time last night.
It was good to see John Tavares get that goal for sure, and watch him just let it go.
Yeah, for a guy who got like I said, you've always believed in him, you said, but he got kind of raked over the coals every time the Leafs lost in the first round. The New York crowd was always on him, laughing at him with that shot of him in his pajamas when he was a kid.
Every kid Leaf fan in Toronto had the same pajamas and the same blanket and the same bed set.
It's a story, you know what? It's one of those ones where if you grew up in Toronto, you grew up a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, and if you had the opportunity, hell yeah, you'd want to play for your hometown team. So good on him for doing it. Took a lot of guts, let's face
100%. And he gave up a lot of money to do it.
Gave up money, and he's going to a market where it's either, like I said, Stanley Cup or bust. If he doesn't get it done, then he's going to be remembered for that. So a lot is on the line, and you could argue that no one on this team has more on the line than John Tavares.
And I'll always defend him because he's doing what he's always done. Mm-hmm. You got him to do what he's always done, and he's doing it. So how can you say he hasn't lived up to expectations when he's doing what he's always done?
What is John Tavares, though? Like when you define the player.
Solid player, point of game.
Yeah.
Right?
Consistent, quiet.
You're going to get the exact same thing every single year.
He's not going to lay out a guy like Wendell Clark used to do.
But he's not going to be pushed around.
No, he's not going to take over a game like a Sundin or a Gilmore either.
And he's not going to cost a game.
Yeah.
Just a solid NHL player.
Even the goal, it wasn't a great goal.
No.
It goes off a skate.
One way for it, like, you didn't expect, like, you couldn't say you expected it to end like that.
No, but
right? The way that the series went, where there was really maybe two bad goals in the whole series.
No, all the goals are decent goals.
Yeah, earned.
Yeah. It's funny, though, because Sheldon Keefe, did you see the video of him on the bench when Tavares had the puck and he's mouthing "go right"?
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's literally like kind of almost like not shouting at him, but like he can't keep quiet. He's like, oh, come on, just turn around, just go in your forehand and shoot it.
Well, he was around the net like 3 or 4 times,
he's
right?
He's literally doing that.
And you know what? John Tavares took over that shift. That was all Johnny T. Yeah. He was around the net. That was his 3rd time around the net when he scored, right?
That's what captains do, man.
Mm-hmm.
They come up with clutch performances, and whether it's a hit from Clark, whether it's that huge big goal that we always saw from Gilmore or Sundin, now Tavares can add his name to that. Came up big. Mm-hmm. We saw Stamkos come up with a clutch goal earlier to put Tampa on the board, and then Tavares answers back.
And that's why he's not underrated. He did exactly what he always does.
He's not underrated because he's making a boatload of money too, John. Mm-hmm. But yeah. But on this team, he's underrated.
Yeah.
He's not Matthews. He's not Marner.
Oh, did I say I meant overrated?
Oh, okay. Yeah. He's not overrated. No. And you know what? You look back now on the Leafs' decision to give him the captaincy. Takes a lot of pressure off of Matthews. Probably takes some pressure off of Morgan Riley. A guy like Tavares, so stoic, so serious. He can handle it. And yeah, he led them to the second round. And good on John Tavares. Good on Toronto Maple Leafs for finally slaying those demons. What do you say? We got a guy who was in Tampa last night for Game 6.
Luke Fox's Sportsnet.
Yeah, should we go to Luke Fox Jukebox and see? I hear they're playing a really cool song, too, in the dressing room. I'd never heard of this song.
I never either.
But let's go to Luke, and let's touch base on what went right in Game 6 and how far this Leafs team can go.
Let's do it.
And now we go live to Tampa Bay, where we've got Sportsnet's Luke Fox, who is in Game 6. I don't know if he was dancing to the Juicy Wiggle, but well, how's it going there, Luke? What's the vibe like in Tampa? I can't imagine it's the same vibe as we got here in Toronto.
It's pretty good. I mean, this is the morning after, and it's sunny and nice, and people are out walking by the river. But there was a fair amount of Leaf fans that made the journey down to Tampa, and they were having a time last night. I don't think it was quite the scene that it was on Yonge Street, but there were some happy fans there. Just an incredible moment when you consider how long this group in particular it took them to finally get over the hump and win a series. It's like, even going into it, I thought they were going to do it. I thought that Kyle Dubas made the right additions to be more playoff ready. But then, Tampa's just so resilient, and they played so well in this series and made it so difficult on the Leafs. And they win in Toronto, and then they just kind of plant that seed of doubt. Like, is this group going to fall on its face again? But a great moment for the players that they finally were able to do it.
And I loved your story this morning. You did a great job in terms of capturing just the vibe, the atmosphere. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things like Coors Light getting cracked in the dressing room, like we just let off there with the Juicy Wiggle, Red Foos, like a hilarious kind of song. How did that one become the Leafs sort of anthem here? It's like their party rock anthem. This is a Michael Bunting or DJ Bunting kind of inclusion, right?
Yeah, so this is probably in November or something. I kind of talked to Michael Bunting on the road one day about him being the dressing room DJ, and Mitch Marner actually picked that song. Okay. He picked the Win song, but Bunting got DJ duties because he was sitting when he first came to the Leafs 2 years ago. His stall was towards the end where the speaker was, and I think it was Jake Muzzin who just said, "You're doing it. You're the DJ." And he's like, "Oh, okay, I guess so." And then he kind of just grew to love it, and so he cues up the music after the game and before the game. He usually plays these. I think it's called Big Booty Mixes or something. Just like kind of have like hip hop but like over like more up tempo beats and stuff like these guys make these remixes and just to hype the boys up. But it was a scene, right? Like you seldom when you go into Leafs room do you hear people cracking beers. I mean, just smiling and hugging and the hoots and the hollers, and it was pretty cool to see them happy. Like they're so tense. They've been so tense and so serious, especially the last 2 weeks, because it's like, they've been just it's been drilled into their head that nothing matters all season until now. And they've kind of gone into lockdown mode. Like, when it came down to Tampa, that the team all stuck together, go out for dinner together, kind of stay away from the people, the crowd, even at home. Like I don't think they were around the people a lot. And, there was almost like a us against the world vibe. They're just kind of sick of the stigma that they have of as guys who can't get it done when it matters. So I think there was like this rush of relief when they finally did it.
Yeah, there's that relief, and I get it. You finally get to the second round. You celebrate like you just won the Stanley Cup. At the same time, I'm looking at Austin Matthews after the game, and just from the broadcast, he didn't look like he was on cloud nine, like he had just won a Stanley Cup. He looked like, okay, one down, three more to go. What is your feeling on, that kind of, celebrate because you finally slayed a dragon, but also do you get the sense that this team now has maybe some of the pressure off and that they have maybe more belief that they can, go the distance?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. And who knows, right? Like if Boston wins, like that's a serious team. If Florida wins, they're playing loose and carefree. They got nothing to lose. And they've proven that they can get, on a hot streak here and there. But I am a believer that they just needed to get over this. Like Austin used the phrase mental hurdle, or, just mentally free, just finally just winning one. And I think that will free them up. And for them to do it in overtime, game 6 overtime, you think about game 6 overtime against Montreal. That was like that famous Keefe speech where he's like, "This is your time." And it wasn't their time. They choked, right? And then game 6 back here in Tampa last year, they had a lead in that game. And then they choked. Bad giveaway, bad penalty. And, so for them to do it in this fashion, I think is really big too. Like win 3 overtime games, like come up in the big moments. And I think they got some bounces too, but were probably due some bounces. I think they were victims of some bad fortune in some of those other series. So I think mentally this is going to free them up. And I like your point about how Austin is like 3 more to go. Like he wasn't celebrating too hard. Same with Mitch. Like, you know, he quickly turned the focus to the next round, and Morgan Riley had a great quote. He's just like, "We're not done." And I love that. It's like, you know, they were supposed to have a media avail today. They canceled it. So I'm sure they partied their asses off last night and had a time, as they should, right? Like, this has been a long time coming. But I don't think they're going to get caught up and it's like, oh, let's start the parade because we won a round. I do think they're going to refocus here. They got the right guys in that room. Luke Shen and Ryan O'Reilly, they are fantastic additions for the culture of the room to keep them on task and give them some confidence. So, no, I think they're going to dial in. I can't see them, you know, going flat in round 2 just because they won one round.
Yeah, that's one thing that I noticed last night, and I don't know if I'm sure everybody else did, but I saw a different Austin Matthews. I saw him playing as hard as I've ever seen him play, but I also saw him directing traffic and telling everybody where to be and telling everybody where to pass it when even if it wasn't to him. So how do you think that's going to carry over into the later rounds?
Yeah, I mean, I like Tavares wears the C, and I love the story of this guy deciding to come home and getting the series clincher. The only other time that Tavares got to the second round, he scored the winning goal for the Islanders.
Yeah, that's a funny stat, isn't it?
Yeah. So, you know, he comes up in the big moments, and that's a great story. That said, this is Austin's team. Right. And he was a beast all series, especially in that game. Like, yeah, he got the goal, which was a heck of a shot. But he was blocking shots. He was like really battling hard for pucks. He threw some hits in this series. Like, I think he realizes that, you know, especially once he won the MVP and back-to-back Rockets, I think he was kind of like, I've checked that box of individual accomplishments, and if I'm going to have a legacy as a hockey player, I need to have some team accomplishments too. So he had a line after, like, you know, someone asked if it was fitting that Tavares scored the winner, just, you know, being a Toronto guy or whatever, and he's like, yeah, it's fitting, but I don't care. We don't care who scores. I'm just happy it went in. I'm just happy we got a goal. And I really like that attitude. He wasn't taking away from Tavares. He was just like, we just need to move on as a team. Right. So I think his mind's in the right place, and he's peaking at the right time. Like, he did not have a great regular season offensively by his standards at all. He saw a 50% drop off in goals. But you'd trade that. You'd trade what you're getting now for a dominant regular season any day. So Leaf fans should be excited that he's feeling it right now.
Yeah, you know what, Johnny and Luke, I keep going back and forth as to who's going to benefit the most from just getting over the hump. And I remember covering the Washington Capitals, and you could see, like, what you're talking about, Austin Matthews. I get the same sense that, you know, that's what we were seeing out of Alex Ovechkin, where, you know, finally you get over that hump. And then we just saw the best of Alex Ovechkin, where he literally put that team on his shoulders and just bulldozed his way to a cup win. At the same time, and this guy hasn't had as much of a monkey on his back, but Ilya Samsonov, I don't know if we have talked enough about this goaltender, but for whatever you want to say about Kyle Dubas in terms of, you know, he didn't go get that quote-unquote number one elite goalie in the summer, Samsonov has checked every single box. And to go toe-to-toe with Andrei Vasilevsky, last night, Game 6, it was a who's going to blink first. Did what Jack Campbell couldn't do. Did what Freddie Anderson couldn't do. Did what we haven't seen since Ed Belfour. What did you make of Samsonov? And can we put to rest that this guy isn't the goalie that maybe a lot of fans or a lot of media portrayed him to be going into the season?
Yeah, he was awesome. Like, Sheldon Keefe said that he played in a way that inspired the guys in front of him. And for him personally, being a Russian and out-dueling like a guy who's basically a god in Russia, just like he's going to go, Vasilevsky is going to go down as one of the greatest goalies that ever played this sport. And just a workhorse. And so imagine he's from your country and you're going up against that guy head to head, and to come out on the right side of it, like that's got to be huge for him. His approach has been really good. Like after they lost Game 5, he didn't seem all down and mopey, and he seemed like happy. Like it's okay. We're going to go down to Tampa. We still got another shot. And it was kind of shocking because Jack would get down on himself. Freddie would sometimes get a little bit defensive about goals he let in, and there was an edge to him. But Samsonov's a bit of a breath of fresh air, and you can sense that the other guys on the team really appreciate his attitude. And then even though he's kind of lighthearted and a bit of an oddball and with some of his comments and stuff, his work ethic is really strong. And in terms of his legacy, it's like he came into the series, he had one playoff win, like one game. That's all he won for the Capitals. So the knock on him is he hasn't done it in the playoffs, but now he has, right? Like you haven't done it until you have done it, and now he's on a little bit of a roll, and it's no fluke. Like he looked strong in the net in Game 6 there. Like he made some brilliant saves.
Yeah, they needed him more than I thought they would need him. Like I thought with this offense that we were going to see kind of what we saw in Boston and Florida the other night, where it was just a back and forth, last goal wins kind of deal. But this was a goaltender's duo in a lot of respect, and so many big saves from Samsonov. A lot of times I was just like, well, not even Samsonov. I think Riley stopped the puck at one point. It was a tight game. Morgan Riley. Let's just quickly shift to Morgan Riley. Best defenseman easily for the Leafs in this series. Really putting a stamp on this playoffs. Got the 2 black eyes. You talked about Tavares and Matthews and how Matthews doesn't have to wear the C. I think you could say the same thing about Morgan Riley in terms of the leadership that he's bringing. Is a lot of his success, predicated on having a Luke Schenn back there who, let's face it, I don't think anyone expected Luke Schenn to be playing this well, especially in his own zone. Well, Johnny did maybe.
Schen's been amazing in the series. Like
he's calm in his own end with moving the puck, isn't he? Yeah.
I mean, you knew he would box people out and block shots and get in the way and stuff. But when the puck's on his tape, he's making the right decisions. And he's playing incredible. Like he's a wonderful story. I thought when they made that trade that he'd be in the series, but I thought, he's like borderline in and out of the lineup. But that was their best pair. And Morgan Riley has always thrived when he's with that kind of guy.
Yeah.
When he's with a safe,
like the
stay
Ron
at home
Hainsey or the
Yep.
Chris Tanev. I remember him playing with him at the World Championships. Even Aaron Ekblad at the World Cup of Hockey. So
he needs that. He needs that. It brings out the best, because then I think mentally it frees him up. Like I can do what I do best, which is skate the puck out, jump up in the rush, like be the fourth man in, take some chances, pinch, because mentally I'm not worried that I'm gonna get a minus because my partner isn't capable of holding the fort. And it's that contrast, they complement each other so well. But that duo had an incredible series, and I feel happy for Morgan because he was taking a lot of flack in the regular season. He was hurt. He wasn't playing well. He wasn't playing with confidence. He was keeping a brave face and saying the right things, but you could tell like he was struggling a little bit this year, and fans were getting on him a little bit. He was starting to turn, like you could see it. If he had a bad playoff, people would have turned on him like they did Jake Gardner or something. Like, but if you look over the course of his career, he's always stepped it up in the postseason, and he was phenomenal in this series. Like goals, assists, but defensively that pair was good. He's really impressed me.
What did you think of the 11-7? Because we talked
I
about
thought it was
yeah, we talked about that before it happened, that they might possibly do it, and we kind of got raked over the coals in our hater tweets.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, it just seemed like it was a Hail Mary kind of move in my mind. And looking back, it was smart because you've got Liljegren, who hasn't played at all in these playoffs, and you've got Gustafsson again, who hasn't played at all, and you're taking Hall out. And I thought it's a bit of a gamble to go 11-7. But now looking back, you're going, genius move by Keefe.
Really smart move.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think that this is why they practiced it so much down the stretch in those quote unquote meaningless games.
Right.
So that if he did need to go to this, he could. Like, I am not a Justin Hall hater. I think he does a lot of good things. But if you look over his career, he gets in these funks, right, where it's not going well for him, and then he starts to look shaky, and it snowballs. He had one of those stretches in like October, November too, where it was just going south for him, and he rebounded and he climbs his way out of those, but he goes through those spells, and he was in one. So if you're the coach, you have to recognize that. He got defensive when he was asked about Justin Hall, because it wasn't all on him. Mark Giordano was not great, especially early in this series. And that pairing was was taking on water. So something needed to change. And the argument against is just how cold they were. So Liljegren hadn't played in 16 days. Gustafsson hasn't played in 21 days. Like, that's a long time. I know they're skating every day and they're practicing, but that's a long time to go without game action. And then you go into a game 6 against a really desperate team. It's kind of a risky, like you're saying, Hail Mary type scenario. But on the flip side, these guys got fresh legs and fresh minds. They haven't made any mistakes. So it was a bold move, but I think it was a great move. And Michael Bunting also looked like he had some jumps too.
Oh,
I think that little healthy scratch kind of like even gave him more juice, and he stayed out of the messy stuff. He just played a controlled game. He was in on the forecheck. So a lot of changes game to game, but they paid off. I mean, if it doesn't work, everyone's on Keith's back, right? And saying like, you panicked, you made too many moves, but when it works, you look like a genius.
Yeah, one thing that I liked was, in Game 5, Austin Matthews, he played 30 seconds in the first 7 minutes. So you need to pump those guys out there if you want to win. Your best player's got to be on the ice.
And the other thing I noticed, like, Luke, you're talking about healthy legs, healthy mind, and this team is healthy coming out of the first round. This isn't like, we don't know who's going to come out of the other end, with whether it's Boston or Florida, because we're doing this on the Sunday, the day after the Leafs won. So we'll see what happens in terms of their opponent. But whether it's Boston, whether it's Florida, I feel like Toronto's going to get a team that's been through the ringer and going to be nursing a lot of maybe injuries. And that was maybe a difference maker against Tampa. Let's face it, whether it was Cernak, whether it was what Hedman was playing through, what Point was playing through, there were a lot of banged-up bodies on the other end, and Toronto could see another banged-up team in the second round. What do you make of Toronto's next opponent, and the fact that they are healthy after round one, and they've got some bodies up in the press box that they might rely on, but they don't have to rely on right now?
Yeah, it's massive, and I think that it probably isn't talked about enough in this series. The fact that Tampa Bay, traded away Ryan McDonough, and then Michael Bunting takes out Cernak in the very first game, and he was done for the series, right? And I just think you look at Tampa Bay, and they had like Darren Radish playing massive minutes.
Yeah.
Next man up was Hayden Fleury. And then we went to the last full Leafs practice that they had, and Victor Mete got healthy, and they had 10 healthy defensemen, NHL level defensemen at their practice.
That's crazy.
All like completely healthy and ready to go. It was like hilarious. 10 guys. So that, I think this stems. I think you have to give Kyle Dubas credit, and you look back at the trade deadline. Who did Julian Breezeball go and spend like 5 draft picks on? Tanner Jeannot, a forward who ended up being healthy scratched the last 2 games with their season on the line. And Kyle Dubas, went and got Gustafsson and Shen and just loaded up on D, because we know if you're going to go 4 rounds, there's going to be an injury. It's going to happen. And for Toronto to make it through round 1 without a significant injury, I mean, guys are banged up. Gio is for sure. But for Toronto to escape round 1 without a significant injury is fantastic. And the other thing is these extra 2 days, like taking care of business in game 6, as opposed to letting this linger to a 7th game. Those 2 extra days of rest that they're going to have over their round 2 opponent, I think will do wonders. Like, you need that at this time of year.
Yeah. Hey, can I ask you, before we let you go, where were you in 2004? I was just an intern at the National Post back then, so I didn't actually get to cover any of the series. But what are your 2004 memories of the Toronto Maple Leafs clinching? Were you back in school? Were you a quote unquote fan back then?
No, well, I've never been a Leafs fan. So, I mean, I was just a general hockey fan. In 2004, I was working for a magazine called Snowboard Canada. I was a writer and a copy editor there. That was my day job. I wasn't even in the hockey industry. But I've always been obsessive of playoff time. So it was like I wasn't a Leafs fan, even though I lived in Toronto in 2004. But I would just, go home every night after work, and I'd stay up and watch all the series, all the late games. Like, it's the best time of year, especially the first round. It's like, it's like an adrenaline rush just watching all this stuff. But I didn't have like a big emotional attachment to the Leafs 04 win. But yeah, that's what I was doing at that time.
Well, it's funny because you and I both have kids now, and my son wasn't around for a playoff win in 2004. I don't think your son was either. We're going so far back that I had hair back then.
He wasn't born.
So we're talking a long time. Hey, Luke, we appreciate you coming on. Again, Luke Fox from Sportsnet. You can follow him at Luke Fox Jukebox. Love that Twitter handle. And Luke, hopefully we can do this again. And until then, we will see you at the rink. For the HockeyVerse, I'm Michael Tricos, and this is Johnny Legend, and this is the Juicy Wiggle. Yeah, get used to hearing this, folks, because this has now become the Toronto Maple Leafs anthem. I think we're going to be hearing a lot of this song in the next couple weeks, maybe the next couple months. We'll see.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to the HockeyVerse. If you enjoyed this show, please share the love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, and by introducing the HockeyVerse to your friends and family. Also, be sure to check out thehockeyverse.com. While you're there, sign up for our newsletter. It's specifically written for you, the diehard hockey fan. From insider news to opinion and analysis, our NHL-focused newsletter will entertain and equip you for the conversations of the day. We thank you for your support, and until next time, this is the HockeyVerse.